My name is Selma van de Perre. Velleman was my maiden name. And I live in London, in England. And my profession, well, just before I was arrested, I was a foreign correspondent, because my husband had been, and when he died, I became a foreign correspondent, took over his job. Before that, I was a mathematics teacher at a high school, although the last 5 years I taught as a lecturer in sociology. I taught sociology for 5 years. And then I had to give up because I couldn't do both jobs, teaching and foreign correspondent, so I had to give up the teaching and went on with my foreign correspondence until I started to go in the underground, the resistance, and then was arrested and sent to concentration camp here after a few other ones, here in Ravensbrück. I think it was when there were 50 years celebrations and the Fürstenberg or Brandenburg Society invited all the ex-prisoners, and none of us in Holland wanted to go, but in the end a group went, and so I went as well. Oh, that's only about 3 years ago. I used to come a lot here with Dutch PABO students, with future teachers, and I came every year actually for quite a long time, about 12, 13 years, to Ravensbrück. And then the Hansford Stiftung asked me to come to Ravensbrück with them, and I did that. And now I've been coming for 3 years, I think, 3 or 4 years. Well, I thought when I was told about it and I saw the beginning, the first day, I thought it was going to be terrible. I thought, no, they can't do that. But once they finished and gave the performance, I thought it was beautiful, very well done. And the dance teacher, he was very good. I thought he must have got so much out of the students, and most of the students were very young anyhow. So I thought it was very well done, yeah. Well, art is another way of expressing what has happened here. I'm not saying that it's the only way. I mean, writing about it and teachers telling the children in schools about it is also a very good way. But it is quite a different and original way of expressing what happened here and what the students learned from the few survivors who had been imprisoned here. Oh, I wouldn't say most. I couldn't say that. I think the whole dancing performance was very good. To see two girls giving a dance and expressing what I had told to the group was very interesting. Well, again, it's another way of expression, isn't it? And with young people these days, I thought it was very well done, yeah. Same thing. I wouldn't prefer it, but I thought it was well done and very good, yes. Again, they expressed what happened here, the stories, and the music and the background was very good, yeah. And definitely all the different languages, that's what I thought very interesting, yeah. Because here, of course, the women from all over Europe have been imprisoned, so every country was represented here, really, and you saw that and heard that in the reading of the students this afternoon. Well, I can see that point, of course, because so many horrible things have happened. In fact, unexplainable horrible things have happened. Horrible. Never thought that it could happen. Nobody believed it. It's really unbelievable what has happened. But it has happened. And I think if art is a way to express that, then that's a good way. It teaches the people who are maybe not interested, but we're interested in art, also what has happened. And I think that's a very good way. I can see what people mean. Because of the horrors, you shouldn't dance. And dance is usually something of gaiety, isn't it? And that is, of course, not gaiety. But you can express, in modern dancing, you can express everything, really. Anything with dancing. Like you can express anything in writing. So what they've done, I think what the teacher does, who teaches them how to express it, is a very good way of doing it. For instance, a lot of young people who would be interested in music, especially in the rap music, which isn't classical, as my generation was very interested in, but they would get interested because you could see it this afternoon in the group of youngsters who were doing the rap music. I mean, they were really interested, and I don't think it was only that little group that's interested. I think if it is published, then many, many more people would be interested to have a look at it and to understand it or try to understand it. And that's why I think it's a good new thing. It's new, obviously, but I think it's a good thing. I think both are very, very important, but for me, silence is a very much bigger thing. I believe in being silent very often, although sometimes music or reading, loud reading then, is also very, very interesting, and not only interesting, but it gives you information. Well, in a way, silence does it well in between. I mean, you can be silent and your brains can hear things and see things, which you can only do in silence. Say, if you lie in bed in the evening, you can have the views in front of you. You must all have that in front of you of something important. And I think that's very, although you're silent, and that's why I think that is very important too. You need both, really, don't you? Sound and silence. And of course, sound, music and sound is marvelous, really, isn't it? But also reading poetry, which you can do with music as well, of course. And it is very emotional, it can be, and it often is. Like this afternoon, I thought it was very emotional, actually, the rap music, and seeing the youngsters doing it that way, and having them all these different nations, youngsters from different nations, is wonderful. What more do you want? I wish that it was much more, actually. Many more nations would do this. Not only rap music, but come together and enjoy life. And that's what I think is one good thing, because what they're doing here too is, and what should happen in the whole of the world actually, is for the different nations, different people to come together and enjoy each other and be together and study together and live together. I think people don't do that enough. We have the nations at the moment who all try to be in their own little countries. And that's why I think the EU is a good idea. I'm not political at all, but I think at least the nations, the 27 nations, tried to live together, which I hope works. In America, of course, it has worked. There's so many different states who live there together in North America that it should be possible. All the nations there, all the different nations there who live together. It's not always easy, of course, the things happening, but I think we should work towards it. Rome wasn't built in one day, and neither is that. And I think if we work towards that, and ask people to think about other people in a good way. Every culture is different, and you should appreciate that. I mean, and believe in that. And I think that people these days, they generalize so quickly because one or two people are not very nice, and then they generalize straight away saying, oh, but that whole country or that whole nation is very bad. You shouldn't generalize. You can never generalize, or you should never generalize. I always say that about Germans as well, for instance. When people say, what do you think about Germany and the Germans? And, well, there are many nice Germans as well. And I think you shouldn't generalize just because there were some Nazis who did the most horrible things. And I think if everybody should only think of that about the whole world, then I think it would be much better. And bear each other, also in the Middle East. Well, it's very difficult to know that, except that when they have questions. The girls with questions, of course, and the boys were that was a very great thing. And I loved therefore questions, because you know how interested they are then, and you know what they want to know. But the main thing is for me, and that's why I come here every year, is that you can tell the people, the students, the young people, what happened. In person, a personal survivor is so, where you hear it from my mouth, is so important, I think. When you read it, it's all right too, of course, but there are so very few survivors. And who can tell it, what happened, all the horrible things that have happened and the unbearable things. And I think that's very important, so that the students, the young people who hear that, can think of it and I hope behave in the future in a bearable and social way, accepting other people's culture. Well, I've done it, what happened here, of course, I've done it for several years now. I've been here with the Pabo students about 16 or 15 years ago, every year, and told the story. In the beginning, of course, it was terrible. The first week I couldn't sleep, and I cried a bit as well, and also my throat went, it all went together, and I couldn't speak anymore for a while. Well, for a while during the day. And so that was horrible. But I've got used to it, of course. I tell the story every year now, slightly different depending on the questions, but I do. And so I got used to it. But I still have difficult nights. And especially what I have experienced here in Ravensbrück, what I myself have experienced here in Ravensbrück and in the prisons and in Vught, I seem to be able to carry that. What troubles me very much more, what gives me sleepless nights, is what happened to my parents and my sister. I see the most horrible things happening to them. The trains and the other things and so in Auschwitz. And that I dream about quite a lot. And last week I didn't sleep most of the time because of that. And that's very funny because I haven't, well, not funny, but I mean, it's extraordinary because I haven't experienced all these things. I experienced here a different thing, but it was terrible. As I say, in my sleep, and I wake up after an hour, and then I can't sleep, and I fall asleep again for about an hour at 3, 4 o'clock, and I just have the most terrible nights. And last week I had that the whole week. And this is what happens to me. Still,